Oh, it's like Christmas in November, guys.
That's
Welcome
right.
on into the Colorado Prep Show presented by Upswing. I'm the editor-in-chief of Colorado Prep's Dan Mohrmann. On my right, in person, the editor-in-chief of Mile High Sports Magazine, Doug Ottewill. And on my left, the proprietor. I don't know if you're the proprietor or the operator, whatever we say of this great establishment, the Upswing Foundation, Jermaine Stafford. What's going on, fellas? How's the weekend treating you?
He looks as good in person.
He does look as good in person.
Maybe better.
I paid him to say that.
That's, you know, to some degree, we all get paid to say something to someone, right? Especially to everyone out there tuning in. Thanks for joining us. It's a big day, obviously, with football playoffs, which are right around the corner. And with that, the road to state is officially here. And high school football regular season ended over the weekend. The playoff brackets were released yesterday. We're going to talk matchups. We're going to have some interviews with coaches. It's going to be a great day. But we're also excited to announce that the Road to State Show, a football-only program, will air every Tuesday between now and the state championship games, the last week of November and then the first week of December. We'll be live on location with coaches, kids, football teams galore.
And chicken.
Brought to you by Raising Cane's. So thankful for their partnership in this venture. We're so excited. We'll have a bigger surprise. We may announce it tomorrow. We may announce it in a week, but it's kind of a culmination of the entire deal. The Road to State begins tomorrow night. Just over 24 hours at 7585 North Academy Boulevard in Colorado Springs. Palmer Ridge, TCA, they both say they're going to be there. So we're going to talk to some kids about what they can expect. Palmer Ridge is a 4A team with a bye. TCA will be in action, and we're going to talk about that game in a bit because I'm super excited to see what comes out of that one. But Raising Cane's, fuel your game day. So excited to get that going. Jermaine, we never have you in for this part of it. I could throw out of order on the rundown, but for the sake of not,
I feel weird here.
I know you're usually like, you can still do whatever you want to do, whether it's watching kids run on the track, lift some weights, do whatever. But we always talk about what's on the upswing. So Jermaine, I'm going to give you first honors. What's on your upswing now that we're headed into football playoffs?
Wow, I get to go before Doug. That is definitely a first.
It's your home game.
Right. Now I'm part of the family. I guess I'm inducted in. I can tell you this week, we're very excited about our track and field program getting off the ground. Obviously, youth is done. Youth football is done. So now we're going to have a lot more young people coming this way to get ready for the indoor track and field season. We're also excited about our Alpha program this Friday night. It's our Friday Night Lights, where we invite, high school athletes in and high school students just to have conversations about the possibility of, jumping into faith and just having conversations about their life. So this is very early to speak about it. I usually line up myself for what is on the upswing, but that is what's going on. Obviously, I want to welcome you guys into my home today. And if you look around, this is empty home today. But as soon as that 3:30 or 4 o'clock hits, this place is going to be packed.
Well, that's what we like to hear. We are on location at Upswing. We talk about them every week, so we're happy to be here. And now, Jermaine, from the football side, from everything that we're going to talk about today, what's on your upswing in the high school football world of Colorado? Who are you keeping an eye on as we go into things this weekend?
Well, I would be lying if I didn't tell you the truth about the young men you've seen here today. Riverdale Ridge is very hot, right? And they're very hot for a reason, on and off the field. Obviously, when the bracket came out, I don't think they expected to be where they quite were slated, but they're just a hot team, right? An undefeated team going into the playoffs. I'm very excited to see where that lands. And also, if you look across that pathway there in that parking lot, you see Arapahoe High School. And we're excited to see Arapahoe in, and they can have a big game against Westminster, the first round. And that second round matchup should be one to make sure that we're going out to. When you see that old school, right, back and them playing back into that game where it's a little rematch situation. So very excited for those two games. And obviously, the 5A things, anyone can take that top six, top six spots you have in that playoff bracket. It's going to be a great opportunity to see some real football. One loss. None of the rest of it. No rankings, no saving people.
Nope.
One loss.
Everyone is 0-0 starting today.
Absolutely.
So, Doug, what's on your upswing?
Well, I think, you could easily say the Cherry Creeks of the world or the Akrons of the world, the Buena Vistas of the world. I mean, they're all on the upswing, getting those number one seeds and buys. But I'm going to go to the 5A bracket, and I'm going to look at Fairview. It's one of the least top 10 teams that we talk about. I mean, we just didn't talk a lot about them other than maybe early on in the season. but there's only 1 point that separates them from being an undefeated team. I think they can make a lot of noise if they were to get through first 2 rounds. They'll see Cherry Creek. I'm not saying Cherry Creek would not want to play them. I don't think Cherry Creek fears anybody, but they're kind of one of those teams that, man, they put up a lot of numbers every single week, and that could be a very intriguing matchup. And look, they're one of those teams. Like I said, they lost to Arvada West by 1 point. The difference in where they're seated and where Arvada West or even Ralston Valley is seated, it comes down to 1 point. So I think they could make some noise from wherever they're at.
And that's going to be a fun one to watch too. On my upswing, I'm actually looking down at the 2A ranks. All season, guys, I've talked about TCA and Wellington and how we've basically had those 2 teams kind of on this collision course for a state title rematch. Well, the problem is the top of that field is so stacked now that if they're going to play again in these playoffs, it's going to be in the semifinals. You have 4 undefeated teams at the top of the 2A bracket, which is just going to make for a fun 4-week stretch of football. So I'm really excited.
First or your last, right?
What's that?
For your first or your last.
Yeah, that's right. The entire way through. TCA certainly doesn't have a cakewalk in their first game against Florence because they get the state's leading rusher, and that's not in 2A. That's in every classification. So, it's going to be really, really fun to see how that all shakes out, and we're so looking forward to games getting started. This is probably one of the best times of year in terms of high school sports. We're coming off a fantastic Cheyenne Mountain volleyball tournament at the World Arena that I was a part of all weekend. State cross country, we'll touch on that at the end. We had a course record broken. Someone has done something that's never been done in the state of Colorado before, which is just outstanding. But as I mentioned before, we're here live at Upswing, located at 7460 South University Boulevard. I'm on that Colorado Springs time zone.
You can take the guy from Colorado Springs out of Colorado Springs, but you can't take the Colorado Springs out of the guy.
Never.
Even if it's military.
That's right. With experienced coaches and a safe, high-performance environment, Upswing helps youth discover their true potential. You can see just a sliver of the setup behind us, but the facility has everything needed to make for high school and youth athletes to make strides toward hitting their competitive goals. For many youth, Upswing is the first time that elite coaching and facilities have been within reach. Their scholarship program has been beneficial to so many kids that have come through these doors. Jermaine talks about it incessantly with us. It offers kids opportunities that they would never get otherwise. And if they can get in the door, they can get that elite training. They can get into the recovery center, and those recovery techniques will enable them to not just compete at a higher level, but sustain that level of training throughout the athletic year. You can learn more at upswingfoundation.org. And with that, guys, we're gonna playoff football's here. As I mentioned, we're gonna touch on a little bit of everything first and foremost, but first round games in all classifications will begin as soon as Friday. All teams on the 2A, 1A, 8-man, and 6-man brackets will be in action, while the top 8 teams in 5A and 4A they get first round buys. Riverdale Ridge, as Jermaine mentioned, is not among that group, which we are going to talk about later. But as we get into each bracket real quick, we're going to get into each classification real quick, but the first thing I want to ask is what jumped out to you guys the most when pairings were announced yesterday?
Well, I think that the 4A bracket as a whole jumps out. I mean, obviously you have the storyline with Riverdale Ridge, but when you look at those top seeds 1 through 4, they literally could be 4 through 1. I mean, anybody could have got any of those seeds, and the way that it shakes out, I think sets up pretty interesting as far as what the matchups, especially when you start to get toward the semifinals. There's probably 8 teams really that have a legitimate shot at a semifinal, but because of how those seeds come out, you might have a semifinal like you mentioned in 2A that could really be the state championship game. But it's a great bracket. I think just from top to bottom, that bracket in and of itself has the most intrigue.
And where I would warn you about saying something like that early, I drove out to Basalt last year because I thought the semifinal game between Basalt and TCA was going to be the state championship game, because at the time I hadn't seen Wellington play. We're going to talk with their head coach, Travis Peeples, here in just a second, in a little bit. But I hadn't seen Wellington play, so I thought Basalt and TCA was a state title game. It was a great game out there. The game in Pueblo for the 2A title was actually much, much better. And for a lot of reasons that a lot of people know about, some officiating, there were some beneficiaries of calls that very easily could have gone the other way, and we're not going to dwell on it. We're just going to hope that everyone kind of learns and grows and gets better. But Jermaine, what jumped out to you the most besides the Riverdale Ridge? You've already touched on that, but what jumped out?
Keep reminding me of that as well.
What jumped out to you the most? What was there anything that when the pairings were released, you kind of looked at it and thought, oh, this is interesting?
Yeah, I was excited about the 5A, and not just want to jump to the 5A as if that's the best group of football players out there. But in the 5A ranks, I look at there are matchups that you will see very early on, as Doug was alluding to in that 4A ranks. In the 5A, you'll see state championship type games very early. I mean, when I think about, you can see, a Legend Valor early. You can see Creek facing one of the teams in the past that they have early. I'm very interested in see how their Arapahoe, if Arapahoe makes it through with Fairview. I mean, that's a big challenge, big game. So the pairings, when you start to see them on paper that early, now all the rankings and all, like, can they make it in? Will this team make it in? It's a big opportunity for some underdogs, and there's some great opportunity for some teams to make it their way to get to that state championship up there in Fort Collins.
All right. Like I said, we're going to dive into each classification. We're actually going to start one of the lower seeds. Head coach of Haxtun, JD Stone, joins us way up there in the upper northeast corner of the state. There he is. Coach, how are things out in your corner of Colorado?
Nice. The weather's been great. A little windy like always, but it's nice out here.
What is your favorite part about getting to this time of the year?
It's fresh. It's like a fresh start. We've been grinding with our kids since January 1, and the season kind of turns into a grind. So as soon as the playoffs hit, it's like a new life. Everybody's 0-0 right now, so it's time to get going. It's just fresh. It's like a new start.
Coach, when you look at that bracket, and you guys obviously drew the 2 seed, what do you tell your kids about in terms of maybe overlooking some of those early rounds? I mean, in theory, it should be a crash course between you and Akron, but who do you see in your way that presents a problem, and what do you coach your kids up when it comes to those opponents?
I know it's just coach talk, but you got to tell them, everybody's 0-0 right now. We got to approach every game like it could be our last. But we definitely have to. And once you get to the postseason, you have to look at every game as this is this week. We can't look forward because it's easy to look past an opponent. We got Sedgwick County again next week, which is a league foe, and if we get past this first round, so it's easy for the kids to overlook it. So we preach really hard on staying focused and keeping our eyes on the goal and worrying about Plateau Valley this week.
Hey, Coach, you spoke about January 1 as your start date. I mean, what a lot of coaches, great coaches always have that true timeline of when to make it to December, right, or November and get in the playoffs. What do you guys do different to make sure that you're prepared for that long run, knowing that you have 3 to 4 games in the months where legs are down, bodies are sore? What do you guys do to prepare?
So off-season wise, we spend a lot of time in the weight room, obviously, like everybody does. And I'm lucky with our basketball coaches and our track coaches. They work with me on my schedule too, so I can get the kids in and out quick. But once fall hits, we try to take advantage of some downtime anytime that's possible. Mondays, we typically, after a win, we spend the day, keep the kids off their feet. We do some yoga, stretch a little bit, try to be really light on the kids on Mondays. We don't have much contact this time of year in practice and stuff, and we limit special team reps and stuff that encounter a whole lot of high intensity reps. So we try to limit that too. But at this point, a lot of it's just we're still working on our fundamentals and our basics, but we've repped it out so much that we're starting to neck it down, and it's more just game planning, and it's more mental reps daily. And now that the time changes happen, we try to stay off our game field as much as possible. We do have a grass game field, so we're dark by 5 o'clock, so we're pretty limited on how much time we have with them.
Coach, I know we're real early in this process, and you don't want to overlook anybody, but if you look ahead and say, hey, if we're to win the state championship, we have to do A, B, and C well. What are those things that your team must do well in order to work its way all the way through this bracket?
Well, we're pretty old school. I mean, we do a lot of modern things on offense, but we're very old school football team. We try to play really gap sound, physical defense, and we run the football. Last 2 weeks, I think we threw the ball 9 times. So we're going to want to run the football. So if we can block and tackle well and just execute, and for us, a big thing, because we're not as deep as we have been the last few years, is stay healthy. We really ran into an injury bug mid-season this year. So we're starting to get healthy right now. If we can keep kids healthy, that would probably be the key at this point.
You've been in this spot before where you're a defending state champion going into the postseason. What have you learned as a coach that really can help this group of kids, especially coming off the loss of a kid like Rylan Wolf, who was just so outstanding for you guys in the playoffs that last year? What have you learned that you can instill in these kids that can help them mentally prepare for kind of that stature of being the defending champion that everyone's going to want to take out?
We talk a lot about not letting complacency take over. I think I learned that the hard way. In 21 and 22, we were on a 27-game winning streak and lost in the semifinals. And we definitely overlooked that game. And since then, I've made it a point to make sure the kids don't overlook anything. They're always trying to keep their eyes on this week's opponent, make sure they're focusing, make sure film time is only on that game. I lock out all the other games film so they can't start looking ahead of the stuff that I have. So they're only able to focus this week on Plateau and next week on that opponent. So I'm really preaching complacency with the kids now since, I'll be honest, in 22, I learned a really hard lesson as a coach.
And you mentioned you might get Sedgwick County, another league foe, next week. And I believe Akron is also in your league. I mean, you're talking about almost the SEC of 8-man football up there in the northeast corner of the state. So does that help you? Does that help you be battle tested come this time of year?
It does, and actually Dayspring is too. So 4 of the top 8 teams are all out of our league. So it's pretty much once league play starts, we always feel like we're pretty much entering the playoffs at that point. I think out of our league, the state championships come out of our league like something like 25 out of the last 30 years. So we feel like we're pretty battle tested at this point. And I guess we've seen everybody already. You can always throw some new niches at everything, but it looks like we'll probably have to play a league foe at least 2 more times to be able to hoist a trophy.
And if you're able to get back to Pueblo and get back to Thunderbolt Stadium, what excites you the most about just the experience that gives for those kids?
I like this group. This group of seniors I have right now has always kind of lived in the shadows of me brought him up like a Rylan Wolf and the Granite Stats. They were always just role players behind some great classes that we had in those last few years. So my favorite part is seeing them excel, watching those young men kind of hit the ground and find their place and kind of write their Haxtun story.
Coach, we can't thank you enough for jumping on with us. We know you've got some practice and some things to take care of, so we're going to let you go. Good luck against Plateau Valley. If you have to deal with us again, I guess that means you're doing something right.
I appreciate it, guys, and thanks for everything you do for student athletes in Colorado.
You bet. That is
good luck, Coach.
That is Haxtun Fighting Bulldogs coach JD Stone, the defending state champions. That was I mentioned Rylan Wolf during that interview. Such a fun kid to watch. He was a multi-sport athlete, and it was he's one of those kids where when the ball is snapped, you're only watching him. It doesn't matter if it's on the offensive side of the ball or the defensive side of the ball, because you knew he was going to be doing something impactful for that moment. So really excited to see if those Bulldogs can get back to the state title game. A rematch with them in Akron would be a lot of fun, just from the standpoint of Akron's already beaten them this year. It's a state title game rematch.
Yes.
So, I mean, I can't really call it a rubber game because I think they pretty much play every year. But is it still hard to beat a team twice in 1 year?
Absolutely. It's hard to beat a team once, right? Especially when you're talking about 8-man football. I mean, it's an opportunity where talent works, but chemistry has to happen fast in those type of games. So I think Coach alluded to it, having conference and those around you as you play competition. Yeah, that's great for us to watch for sure. And for them, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna get you this time, right? It's a heavyweight battle, which we don't get to see a lot. I mean, my years of being around Valor, no one wanted to play Valor, right? And like no one wants to play Creek now, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you have an opportunity, like we're in a league, we're gonna play each other, right? And you get that opportunity to match up with someone that knows your best shot. Now that's what true competition starts. I believe. Like if you look at our track here, if it's a 100-meter dash, a 60-meter dash here, it's a 60-meter dash. You know what's going to happen. So you have to beat me on fair ground, and we both have the same objective to walk away with the gold. And I think in this situation with those teams playing each other, that's going to be some exciting football.
All right, so that leads to the question before we move on: is there a first-round matchup in 8-man that piques your interest?
Well, I think to me, I don't know if the first round necessarily piques my interest. I think it should go chalk, but I want to keep my eye on McClave. You have Mason Barr rushing for over 100 yards a game. You know, you talk about it. It's funny. He said, "Hey, we play tough, we play physical, and we run the ball." Well, a lot of teams in 8-man do, but a lot of teams in that northeast corner of the state, they have to run the ball because the wind blows 75 miles an hour all the time. So that's what you do. So when you got a kid like Mason Barr that's running for 100 yards a game, and he talked about, I believe in a story that you wrote earlier in the year, them having some injury problems early in the season.
Mm-hmm.
If they can advance into the state semifinals and be healthy, I think they could upset anybody. And obviously, I think, you know, your 1 and 2 seeds, you know, Akron and Haxtun, they're seeded appropriately, but McClave comes in there. I think they have a chance to make some noise if they can be healthy. And obviously, if you run the ball well in 8-man, you got a shot any week.
Yeah, I think it's at one point during the year, I think they had 5 key injuries on their roster. And if you're talking about an 8-man football roster and you're dealing with 5 players who are injured,
yeah.
Like, we're not math guys. I'm going to be the first one to say that we don't do the math well.
That's right.
But that's problematic to say the least. I'll tell you what, the one team I'm really curious to see what they do is Byers. On my way out to state golf, you and I were out there in Eagle. I was able to swing by South Park High School in Fairplay and check out a little bit of Byers and South Park. I always they're the burros. I always want to call them the cows because of the TV show. But and Byers is a tough physical football team, and they ran away from that game. But it was one of those where when you're watching and you don't see a lot of 8-man football, especially in the metro areas, but you can watch a team play and understand that there is just something a little bit different about them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they just moved well. I thought they were fundamentally sound. So I'm really curious to see if Byers can hang in with Dayspring Christian. And you never know. A 12 always beats a 5. Isn't that what they say?
That's right. It's March
64.
November Madness.
64 tears there, right?
That doesn't matter, right? It's just there's only just one quadrant in here. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the big boys, because I know that's where Jermaine is just getting antsy to talk about. It's a surprise to absolutely no one that Cherry Creek is the number 1 seed coming into the state tournament after a dominant regular season. Jaden Fox is looking every bit like a 5A player of the year, like a Gatorade player of the year. You name the award and the offensive player award, and that kid is well in line to get it. He's been outstanding. The defense for Cherry Creek, though, that's also been a big story. They haven't allowed more than 15 points to an in-state team. So they walk the walk every bit as much as they walk the walk. So Mountain Vista and Ralston Valley, they come in. The Golden Eagles, number 3. Ralston Valley takes the number 2 seed after beating Arvada West. They have the benefit of sitting on the opposite side of Cherry Creek. And then Legend is number 4, and Valor Christian sits at number 5. So Jermaine, I'm just going to let you cook for a quick minute before we bring in our next guest. But what excites you the most about what you see on this 5A bracket?
I should have read this a little bit deeper and make sure I know who the next guest is before I fire someone up.
Please fire him up.
Yeah, I would try. I try not to. I don't want those problems from any high school.
Call for him to get upset by the bye. Let's do that and let's see how that goes.
No, I mean it's very exciting to look at. You know, directly. I look at my sheet and I put big matchups here, and out of the gate, you see some great opportunities, some great storylines here in this bracket. I'm interested to see some matchup. Columbine versus Fruta, and that's huge for me, because I would love to see Columbine and Ralston Valley go at it. If you have that old history, in your bones. You know what that game brings, right?
And that was a competitive game in that first
always. So bringing those two back would be, amazing to see. Seeing which team has a great opportunity. I mean, in the third round, you could see Legend, facing Valor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a huge game. I mean, all very out of the gate. So not the semis, right? And not the championship. So how it comes out and who has the best and the easiest, you could throw all those things out when it comes to high school playoff football, because there is no easy game, and there is the hardest schedule. With Creek, I think their hardest, their toughest competitor will be Creek, point blank. It would be Creek defeating Creek. It would be Creek propelling themselves to continue with the momentum they have. That could be tough at times. And Coach Logan and those guys over there, Coach Walker and Coach Betty, they do a great job by managing, talent. I always, anytime I get an opportunity to put my hand to the GOAT, I always talk about it. I'm a Nick Saban guy. I was raised by Nick Saban. I've seen it. We were always prepared to play the game inside the game mentally. And he didn't need a lot to motivate us, right? Not on Saturdays. Right? It was done all week. And I think with Creek, just another opportunity for them to go ahead and show how they were just more than a football team. But on the other side, I mean, you have that Legend team, 50 plus, 5 weeks, right? That's a tough opportunity. So yeah, Arvada West sits there and they're hot as well. I mean, I would not want to be one of those teams that's sitting down in top bracket with a bye, knowing these hot teams are coming in as well.
Well, and I think when you look at the 5A bracket, and we talked about it throughout the course of the year, really 2 through 7 probably kind of bounce back and forth all year. And the difference between 2 and 7 might be pretty minuscule. So, regardless of what side of Creek's bracket you're on, I think any of those teams that say they want a shot at winning, they'll get that chance whether they're on that side of the bracket or not, if they're that team. And if they're not, they're not. But Cherry Creek right now, I think, is the team to beat, and that's the way that it's been set up from the beginning of the year. And to some extent, they've almost arrived there quietly because they've just been so businesslike about what they've done all season long.
Yeah, you almost forget about them week to week because they're just doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, we see the exciting scores with Mountain Vista or the big rivalries in Jeffco, and you kind of just go, oh yeah, well, Creek won again, and that's that's kind of how they arrived at this playoff, but by no means are they not the favorite. They are.
Well, and I'll tell you what, there's one guy that he thinks he can hang with those guys, and we're going to throw it out. The head coach at Valor Christian High School, Mike Sanford, now joins us. And Coach, when the brackets were released over the weekend, I think I sent you a text that said you got to beat Creek sometime, and I think you're more than open to that kind of challenge should you get there.
Yeah, sorry about my technology here being a little poor, going back and forth between Valor and the Altitude Sports Radio station and the studio here. So, I'll tell you what, this is a really, really good year of 5A football in the state of Colorado, and I've had a chance to see it firsthand. I think the schedule that we've been fortunate enough to play this year has acquitted us well for the challenge that awaits. And what I'm excited about with this bracket is that we have an opportunity, and we'll see how it all plays out. But, Regis Jesuit or Erie High School, which Erie's fun for me if that ends up being the game, because that's where my daughter transferred to Valor from. That's where we live. That's my old stomping grounds. And Coach Geiger and I are really good buddies. We did 7-on-7 together. Chad Cooper, the AD, is a good friend of mine. I was on the softball hiring committee a year ago. My daughter is a softball athlete. So that's exciting, but also the fact that, what lies ahead, and we'll find out. But we know at the very minimum, the state championship representatives in 5A are on our side of the bracket, and that excites me. That makes me fired up to play against potentially Legend, to play against Cherry Creek, to earn the right to be in the state championship game, and something that gets my juices flowing, man. And I'm excited to prepare for that challenge that awaits.
Hey, Coach, Jermaine here. I am an old Valor guy, as most of these my guys here beside me always remind me of that every opportunity the name comes up. I'm very excited just to hear you speak. Talk a little bit about how you turned that program to, I don't want to say around, because I don't think it would need it turned around. I think it was a new path What new path did you take at Valor this year to fire those young men back up to have that brand where they come out swinging every week?
Well, it's a great question because, Valor football, I don't think it was broken by any stretch of the imagination. Brett McGatlin did a really nice job and went to a state championship in his first year as a head football coach here. And so for me, it was just about leading this team the best way that I knew how to. Part of it was, making sure that we blend a very talented senior class with guys like Cash Spence and Dawson Olk and Cannon Smith. Chase Hanish has been one of the great stories of the senior class this year. Wilson Patachik, it's been a great story, but blending those guys into what I think is a really, really exciting group of sophomores, juniors. You got Reese Russell and Jackson Coleman with, upwards of 15 Power four offers, and a sophomore class that I think arguably will go down as one of the best overall classes in the history of this program. So it's just been about integrating and finding connectedness amongst those three classes. And part of that has been the decision to move in the direction of giving the starting quarterback job after the Mountain Vista game to Titus Heward. And, a sophomore that's got crazy amounts of ability. He's been really fun to coach, and he does not miss throws. That's the bottom line. He's an 85% completion percentage guy, and since he's been able to take over as a starting quarterback, and I feel like we're a very different team right now. Just overall with just how he plays the game the way that I and my brain sees the game, and that's a really fun thing as a play caller.
Coach, I was listening to your radio show when I was driving in here to Upswing this morning, and I could have swore that you had Lou Holtz on, but as I kept listening, I was like, no, this is Mike Sanford doing his Lou Holtz impression, going through the bracket, talking about the mighty Bruins and all these good teams in the state. And he said, yeah. And then we got, little old Valor Christian over here. Is that your Lou Holtz? Are you downplaying that? And what's your message to your team? Do you kind of tell them, hey, guys, for the first time in maybe a long time, maybe people are overlooking us a little bit? Like, what are you telling them as you approach this state playoff bracket?
Well, the way I look at it, it's a great question. I mean, obviously, I'm the son of a coach. I coached at Notre Dame, I coached at Notre Dame. My dad coached at Notre Dame right after Lou Holtz was there. So I know all about the psychological warfare and shenanigans that happen in coaching. Some of it might be tongue in cheek, just almost just having fun with it. I love my team, but the reality is we have 2 losses. 2 really quality losses, I guess, but we are a 2-loss team right now. And so when you look at the kind of the big 6, big 7 in 5A football, and I would definitely lump obviously Legend and Fairview and Arvada West into that as well, in addition to the 2 teams we lost to in Cherry Creek, meaning Mountain Vista and Ralston Valley. We're a 2-loss team. Now, that's who we are. I'm a 2-loss head coach. I have all these college accolades, but I lost 2 games in my first regular season as a head coach here. That's just the game of football is pure. The purity of our situation right now is the fact that we are 8-2. We did not win our league championship. Do I like that? No, I don't. I don't want to lose any games. I wanted to go 14-0 and have a state championship to hoist. And that's how my mind saw it when I took the job at Valor Christian. But I do really like my team. And I'm not going to even call them my team. It's our team. It's a really, really fun group of young men to coach. If you come out and watch us practice, starting way back in, I started in February, March with some, voluntary throwing sessions. I just love the work that we've been able to put together. And for me, having coached at so many different levels, of college football, and this really being my first time fully investing in high school football, I just love coaching players that want to learn, want to grow, and there's no transactional nature to the relationship. So it's just been so fun. It's been just a blessing of my life, and I just have found so much joy in coaching high school football.
Hey, you talked real briefly about the switch to Heward at quarterback. Talk to me a little bit about just kind of the messaging through your team, how your team's embraced that change, and then maybe how everybody's been on board since. I mean, obviously you guys have been playing well, but that's not an easy transition to make midstream, if you will.
Well, in addition to my faith, I really do subscribe to a lot of Stoic philosophy, and that's something that I've learned about, that data, including victories and losses, are simply data points you need to respond to. And so, what I needed to do as a head football coach, and I explained it to the roster, is that I needed to get the data to make the most educated decision for this football team this year, to win a state championship this year. And frankly, I was able to gather a whole bunch of data of both Dawson Olk as a quarterback, and there were a lot of great things that Dawson did. And Dawson, in case you didn't know, he's playing a pretty mean tight end right now. And he's been involved, and he's a big old joker with, can carry 230 pounds. I think he's got a future as a Taysom Hill. But the data was that Titus Eward, at the time, he was getting the fourth series of every game leading up to, I guess it was the Castleview game where we made the switch. So you got 6 games where, Dawson Olk was getting a lion's share of the reps. He did some really good things. But ultimately, I had to point to the data points between both quarterbacks. And the game's pure. I keep saying it. The game is pure, and there's no politics into it. And that's what I said. I wanted to establish meritocracy at Valor Christian High School. I don't care truly what your last name is. I don't even care what class you're in. I don't care how you got to Valor. I don't care if you were recruited by somebody, which doesn't happen at Valor because there are no scholarships for athletes whatsoever, for the record. But I wanted to make sure that that everybody knew that every single rep would be earned, not given. And that's what ultimately we were able to do. And I was able to explain to the senior class, particularly our captain leadership group, the decision and why I made that decision. And then all I know is that we haven't punted. We haven't punted since the Mountain Vista game. So that's just about a month, and it's been good. It's been football, and Dawson Olks had a lot to do with that because of how he's responded. You want to talk about an incredible young man, and how what he has done on a daily basis to do whatever is asked of him. He can then go out and show the rest of the team, and I can point to the rest of the team that are freshmen, sophomores, juniors. That's what selflessness looks like in incredible amounts of adversity for a senior quarterback that had major visions of big things at the quarterback position. He still can achieve those things. But I think that part of his story, and even part of his expanded opportunity in recruiting, is to show his versatility as a big athlete.
Coach, not just in making the switch from Dawson to Titus, but really just all around, how is this team better than it was following the Mountain Vista loss?
I think it's it's one of those things where there were some penalties, there was some lack of execution, there were some tackling woes that I kept telling this team as we were winning by 25 to 40 points in the first really 4 games of the season. Good teams, by the way. We weren't playing a bunch of slouches. I mean, that includes Mohrmann and Regis Jesuit, Faith Lutheran, a team that's still alive in the second round of the playoffs in Nevada, that went to the state championship a year ago. My dad was the head coach of that team until this year. And then obviously Pine Creek, who I would consider them in that elite class, even though they have 3 losses. They've had one of the toughest schedules in the state of Colorado. But, it catches up to you when it catches up to you. Penalties, not hitting open guys, like not taking advantage of the opportunity to hit shot plays, having penalties that nullify explosive plays. It catches up to you, and it catches up to you. That's something that I talk to our team about all the time. And it did. It caught up to us in the Ralston Valley game, not tackling. Zeke Andrews was able to, I think Zeke Andrews himself was able to create probably an additional 200 yards of offense after we were in the backfield with our hands on him. And that, you got to finish the play in the backfield, especially against a player of that caliber with the senior skill players that he has in Rillos and Bonello and Shirazi. Those guys are awesome, man. They're big time. I love what Yano's doing there. They're a team to be reckoned with for sure. And then against Mountain Vista, I mean, the amount of opportunities that we had to win that football game was mind blowing. If you watch that thing closely, that's a game that we allowed Mountain Vista to go out and get. But we didn't go out and get it ourselves. And so the resolve has been, how do we practice? Well, we practice really physically. We tackle. Whatever CHASA and NFHS allows us to do, we're going to do every single week, and we have since that moment. And I love it. We're playing physically, and as a result, we're healthy. We're a healthy team. We've gotten guys back that have missed some of the last few weeks, or even some of the early parts of the season. And so, yeah, I love where our team's at. But we understand that this is going to be a tough challenge because we're facing potentially a state championship in Erie, a team that won a state championship in the last 3 years, and then the actual matchup of the 2024 5A state championship if Legend and Cherry Creek end up winning those games.
Hey, Coach, and great segue to my question I have for you. We've talked a lot about that quarterback controversy. You know, obviously we spoke a little bit about the close losses you have. Going into these playoffs, we know defense is going to win for you and for Valor. Talk a little bit about your defense. I think all year you guys have played some mighty defense. What are some highlights there? I mean, I've witnessed you guys, playing guys both ways. Very rarely done in Valor, right? Obviously, like you said, everyone's going to earn the reps. Talk a little bit about your defense and how did you guys implement that to go ahead and that streak that you had.
Yeah, I mean, I love, first of all, I think we have the best defensive coordinator in the state of Colorado just because I love him as so much as a man, as somebody that is an incredible example, and that's Stephen Rumpelhammer. I think he was, when I was covering games for Altitude Sports Radio, after my production meeting broadcasting the Denver East game against Ralston Valley last year, I got off the Zoom call and I said, that guy's a superstar in coaching at probably the collegiate level. Played at Iowa State. He came over to America in high school. English was a second language from the Netherlands, and was able to do incredible things at Denver East. What a challenge at times to be able to overcome obstacles like he did at Denver East, like not even having a place to practice at times because of shared field space issues and having to walk to City Park without lines to get his team ready to play. That guy's incredible. So yeah, I call him the big pun. I feel like at times I'm the good cop, he's the bad cop, because he's also involved in our strength conditioning program and conditioning today. All I got to say is that our starters haven't played more than about 20 snaps the last 4 weeks, so they have no idea what's coming today with conditioning, but Big Pun's going to have them right. But that's the mentality on defense, man, is that we want to get after people. We want to make people earn every single inch. And I just love the challenge of what we've already faced in I think two of the best offenses in 5A football between Ralston Valley and Zeke Andrews, and then Marquise Reese is an absolute freaking stud. And Brooklyn Bailey, I mean that dude. I love that football player, and I hate coaching against that football player. But we've been able to see some really talented skill players. Tackling has gotten better. But what I like about our defensive unit is that you've seen some really cool integration of some of the young talent. A guy to keep your eyes out for, number 24, Roger Gary. He's a defensive back playing nickel, jack of all trades, really physical, really good blitzer. Evan Ingles, also a sophomore. And then you mix those guys in with Dakota Rich, who's a senior that's getting some good recruitment. Rocco Cali is an interior defensive lineman. Jackson Sanders is an edge rusher that has been getting a ton of opportunities in the backfield to create havoc. So it's a fun side of the football. We're able to play pretty much two platoon most of the time across the field, except for Cash Spence, who you can't take that dude off the field, man. He's been really good at the safety position, and at any point he can take a ball just like he did against Pine Creek and turn the game on its head with a pick six.
Coach, we know you got some radio to hit. We've got to keep on moving, so we're going to let you go, but we appreciate everything. You guys get to rest up this week, and then best of luck, whoever you have, whether it's Erie or Regis, and we'll obviously be watching because you may have to put up with us again.
Well, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for your coverage. of high school football in this state, high school sports. You guys do an unbelievable job. I didn't know about the quality of your work until I watched some of your podcasts, and I just want you to know, as somebody that really values media and the opportunity to tell the stories of these young athletes, what you guys are doing is really unmatched nationally. So thank you again for everything that Colorado Preps does for our sport here in the state of Colorado.
You bet, Coach.
Appreciate that, Coach. Good
Thank you,
luck.
Coach.
Thank you, guys. Be a fun run.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. That's Mike Sanford, the first-year head coach of Valor Christian, of course, was the interim football coach up at CU before they brought in Coach Prime. Decided he and his family decided they want to stick around in Colorado, and
I love this decision.
It's a great decision.
Plus,
So,
I like hearing him on the radio, so I don't want him to leave it.
That's right. I don't think anyone wants him to leave. So, and because he works in radio, we know the guy can talk a little. So the next questions I have for you guys are pretty much rapid fire, as we got to get to a break and we got to get to keep things rolling. But first round matchup that excites you guys the most when you look at this 5A bracket, what do you got? Jermaine, go first so Doug doesn't steal your answer.
Yeah, I was waiting for him. Look at him.
No.
He's biting his lip there. Yeah, I'm going to go back to Arapahoe, Westminster, because I think that second round matchup could be very interesting between Arapahoe and Fairview.
And you want to talk about great story, Chris Helbig, former quarterback, big-time recruit at Holy Family, now the head coach at Westminster, gets him to the playoffs, winning that. I believe it's the North Metro League, which gets one automatic qualifier. Great job.
Awesome job.
Yeah, great job by that guy. Dougie, what do you like in the first round?
Well, for me, and Coach Sanford mentioned it, obviously they're keeping a close eye on this one, but you got Erie number 12 versus Regis number 21. I think both of those teams are interesting for different reasons. You know, Erie was in a top 10 rankings for a lot of the early season. They've maybe kind of fallen off a little bit. Can they be that team that they once were or once thought of? And then Regis, I think, has been an interesting team we've talked a lot about all year because they came in kind of highly ranked, but as Jermaine has talked about a lot, they're super young. And every once in a while, you see one of those super young teams mature at the right time. If they get past this round, maybe they get a little more confidence. All of a sudden, now you're not so young at the end of your young season. So I look at that one and I think, hey, that's one I want to watch in the first round. And then whoever wins that will get Valor. So that makes it even more interesting.
I'm gonna take a little bit of a different approach. I like that Eagle Crest Legacy game. One big reason is Legacy's head coach Kyle Ryder has that program kind of steadying in that ship. Jay Madden, of course, was there for a little bit, but they'd gone through kind of a series of head coaches. And Kyle, I've talked about it before. He's a friend of mine. We graduated from high school together. He's a guy that I know it can be there in the long term. Comes from the kind of coaching tree. George Reikovich being a mentor of his is a guy that was in one place for 30 some years. And that's the kind of guy that I see Kyle being. So I want to see if he can win his first playoff game. Next round won't get really all that easy, as they'd have to face Mountain Vista, but I think a win for Legacy, and really even if Eagle Crest wins, both great wins for those programs moving forward. So another quick one, guys. Underdog run in 5A.
I don't think you can call Valor Christian an underdog, but because they're the five seed, in theory, they're supposed to lose before the semifinals. But you heard that. I hadn't realized this until he just said it, but they haven't punted since the Mountain Vista game.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty big
Stewart is playing some good quarterback.
And you don't want to face a team that hasn't punted in like a month. So to call them an underdog's not fair, but based on their seed, they're not supposed to be there when this thing is all said and done. But I would not count them out by any means.
Well, my underdog is the dog that should have won last year. Everyone thought was ready to win last year, right? When you look at Mountain Vista, I think Mountain Vista goes back into this fight and should have walked away. I believe last year they had a great opportunity to walk away with that championship game. I think this
year, for a stadium change, that might be the case.
Well, midnight change.
Yeah.
Should be some rules. If you you start the game in one day, you're
I think if they could do that one over again, they may think otherwise.
It was confidence boosting from that locker room, and obviously the coaching staff like, yeah, let's go play. We can fight in the phone booth if you like. But I look at Mountain Vista as a team. Yeah, once again, as Doug alluded to, it shouldn't be teams like this. We look in the underdog. Yeah, you have some great. Arvada West is another. I mean, just by name alone, right? Because no one thinks in November you're having that conversation about Arvada West. So
I can't believe both you guys are counting out Andy Lowry. I think Columbine has all the makings right now. This is a team that's grown up really well. They played well late in the year. They get through that first round
quarterback.
And
yeah, two different names, Coach Larry and Columbine, right? It's like, who's playing, right?
Right.
We're not picking against him. We're picking against the data, as you just heard Coach from Valor speak on. Data sets everything when it comes to playoffs. And trust me, I would love to see them in the second round playing Ralston Valley. I think that'll be such a great game.
Fantastic game. So, and that's it. That's good. That's going to end our 5A talk. We're going to take a quick break. Coach Peeples at Wellington, we know you're on the line. We're going to get to you, but more football talk coming up after this.
Raising Cane's invites you to grab life by the chicken fingers. So get out there. Be you. Do you. Embrace whatever makes you, you. All while enjoying Raising Cane's hand-battered cooked-to-order chicken fingers, crispy crinkle-cut fries, buttery Texas toast, and that secret recipe cane sauce that makes everything that much better. So go on, savor the day.
Raising Cane's chicken fingers, one love.
There are those who say the modern world has made us lose touch with places like this. We say, that depends on what you're driving.
Welcome back into the Colorado Prep Show presented by UPSWING, our football playoff bracket reaction show. We've wrapped up. We've talked to Haxtun head coach JD Stone. We've talked to Valor Christian head coach Mike Sanford. We're going to move into the 2A ranks, guys, where I talked about at the top of the show. We have 4 undefeated teams at the top. That stacked field has ruined my dream state championship rematch game from last year. But to talk more about that, we've got him on the line, head coach Travis Peeples up at Wellington. Coach, it's another playoff run for you guys. You guys did a fantastic job of with those boys last year. So what's the excitement level for this team right now?
Oh, we're back in it. So it's that was our goal, day one, to get back into playoffs. 1 or 16 didn't matter. So we're in it, and we're in for another ride, I think.
Well, you're a little closer to that 1 than you are the 16. So I was a guy, and I'll raise up my hand and tell you first and foremost, I doubted you guys a little bit last year, but I hadn't seen you play all that much. When you guys got to the state championship game, I was so impressed with the squad and especially your quarterback in Tanner Gray. When you have a kid like that, how much is how beneficial is that in terms of what you guys have been able to do to get your undefeated regular season?
Yeah, well, he's a big part of it. He's a two-way starter. He's a Division I kid. He's got a few offers in 2A. I don't know how common that is to have a guy like that, and he'd be good in the 5As. So, yeah, we got an elite player, but we also got a full team. I think our O&D line are big and strong. I think we've done a good job in the weight room. We're going to have a tough Alamosa team coming up. I call them brawlers because they're just physical as heck, and they just do everything they can to win. So the bracket's going to be great. I'm looking at all 16 in front of me, my side, the other side. And so I'm kind of excited. Obviously, I only worry about one at a time, but I'm looking at both sides right now because I'm on with you guys, and there looks like there's a lot of good football teams.
Hey, Coach, Jermaine here. I get a lot of flack about being a 5A guy because being a former 5A coach, but I have a lot of respect for the 2A level, and especially being a coach for years. I'm still a coach over at Lutheran High School. We started out 2A. What do you do each week to get your boys to play like big boys, right? Obviously, you have a D1 recruit on your team. What is the kind of the narrative every week that you head into practice, knowing that you have to make that big stance?
Well, I think we're a 12-month program just like the 5As. We're doing the same things. We lift year round. I guess one of the things that might stand out is we film every Tuesday and Wednesday, and we treat it like a game scenario with our scout team. We go in and we break it down. So by the time we play on Friday nights as a 2A school, say Alamosa, Tuesday, Wednesday, when we scrimmage, we make it a game scenario with our scout, and we film it. We make the kids grade themselves. So we put a lot of work into it. I don't know if the timeline is the same as 5A, but I've coached in Florida and I've coached around the state here. We put a lot of time in, and our kids are detail oriented. I think that's what helps us get ready.
Coach, you talk a lot about the film sessions, and you're playing somebody clear over on the other side of the state that you haven't seen before this year. What goes into the prep for facing a team like Alamosa that you likely haven't seen and don't even have a whole lot of apples to apples comparison to go against as you prepare for them?
Yeah, we just know this. They're brawlers, man. They're tough, and we're a tough team also. We pride ourselves on being physical, strong, detail-oriented, and so we're going to keep doing what we've always done. But the one thing I have noticed about that team, they roll the dice. They're not a typical football team. They got a lot of guys that do a lot of different things, and they blitz, and the quarterback's a scrambler. So it's going to cause some things for us. But yeah, I don't know much about them except for the 2 films I got, and but it sounds like they're a proud program, and they got tough kids out there.
And Coach, I don't want to relitigate the really bad thing that happened to you last year, but I want to ask, when you have a situation like that, the fumble that was not called a fumble in the state championship game, what does that do for the leadership and the growth of your players, both on from a football standpoint and just the maturity of growing up to be young men that really might prepare them for this run this year?
Well, yeah, we talked about it. We're not going to leave it in someone's hands for one call. I mean, we had 10, 15, 20 plays in that state championship where special teams, offense, defense could have won it before that play happened. And so the maturity process is, dot all your I's and cross all your T's and do everything necessary. And when you go to sleep at night, look yourself in the mirror and say, I did everything today to be a better football player, a better student, to set my future up. And that's kind of how we run this program. We want our kids to be elite. We want them to be successful, not just in football, but when they leave here. And I think we're getting at that level of a kid who's going to be a well-rounded kid, whether he goes to college, military, job. Our kids understand that playing football here at Wellington is a privilege, and there's a lot of work that goes into it, and I think they're going to carry that on. But, hey, don't leave it in the hands of the refs, and it's not their fault. They made the call. It is the call. Make sure we those other 10, 15, 12 plays we could have made, we win those battles.
And is that kind of the mentality that you had a great run of games early, and then you hit that really tough stretch where you had your Eatons and your Berthets? Is that all just part of it? Make sure you're winning those games. Make sure you're winning those games decisively to get to where you need to be, and part of that is getting that number 1 or 2 seed.
Yeah, we weren't sure if we could get the 1 or 2 seed just because of our pre-game schedule, our preseason schedule, whatever we call the first 4 games. We had a couple teams on there that I think brought our RPI down. We'll change that up in the future and try to get Strasburg and maybe TCA if they'll play us. But, yeah, no, it's been just getting in the top 16. We're at 2, and we're excited to be there. And our kids are fired up to play there, and it's 1 week at a time.
Coach, I can't thank you enough for joining us. What do people need to know about Wellington football that you can't read in any of the papers, or that you just wouldn't know unless you get out and watch your guys play?
I think we're the hardest. I think we're one of the hardest working teams in the state. I think we go year round. I think our weight room numbers are as good as any 3, 4, 5A in the state. And I think our kids out here are kind of farm kids, small town kids, and the work ethic and the type of kids they are. Yes sir, no sir, hard working. Yes, coach. Do exactly what you ask. I think that's what they need to know across the state is we got really quality kids and hardworking kids, and I think the strongest in 2A.
All right, head coach of Wellington, Travis Peeples. Coach, best of luck this weekend, and same thing I've said to everyone else. If you got to tolerate us more, you're doing something right.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Full action in 2A gets underway this weekend. Every team, this is not 4A, 5A where your top 8 seeds are getting a bye. So everyone's in action, guys. Is there anything on that 2A bracket that really jumps out at you?
I like the Lahana Eaton matchup. I think that's that's 2 kind of storied programs, both with rich tradition, both capable of winning a state championship, both have won state championships. So I think you look at that game, and obviously there's an intrigue there, but they would face Strasburg. Winner of that game faces Strasburg, and I think if you're Strasburg, you got the number 1 seed. But as Jermaine's talked about a lot throughout the show, you're in the number 1 seed. You're going to get everybody's best punch first, and either one of those schools is capable of punching pretty hard. So if I'm Strasburg, I'm watching that game closely and trying to see who does what well, and being ultra prepared for that matchup.
Well, if you're Strasburg, you can't overlook a team like Basalt, who's very experienced in the playoff realm. Basalt made a semifinal run last year, and they're starting to play well. So
that's true too.
Jermaine, anything jumping out for you?
In true form, Doug steals my answer. He goes first. So we think alike.
It's a sixth sense. It's a sixth sense.
It is. It's greatly in my own house, right? He does that. But I agree. I believe that matchup, is bad manners. I think that matchup is very intriguing to me because I too look with who's going to be sitting there for Strasburg coming out of that win. And anytime you have a team that has won as much as both these teams have won this season, to get both of them to be able to play a bigger dog down the line, that's an intriguing matchup for me.
I'm really curious, and I'm really excited again, not to over promote it, but our Road to State show that begins tomorrow, we are going to have TCA in-house at Raising Cane's at 785 North Academy Boulevard in Colorado Springs. I want to ask them about their game because their showdown with Florence is going to be massive, considering that Florence has Noah Howard on their roster. This kid is rushing for a modest 227 yards per game. He leads the state regardless.
200 and what?
27 yards per game.
Oh, 227.
227. Wow. So you want to talk about a TCA team that has just been, it's big, it's physical, it's dominant. How do you beat a team like that? You don't give them the ball.
Well, you got to stop them.
Sure, but if you if you could run the ball to the tune that Florence is able to, and keep the ball out of their hands, they can have a tough time scoring. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case, and I think TCA they're very well coached, they're very big, they're very physical. So I don't know if Noah's going to have the same kind of performance that he has on a regular basis, but I think that can be the great.
How big is he?
I have not seen the Huskies yet this year, so I'm not entirely sure to that answer. But
if you're running to the tune of 250 some yards a game, one kid, you are eating the clock. So you make a great point. I mean, that's a great neutralizer against a really good team.
That's how you have to beat a great team, right? We saw that years ago in the 4A state championship game when Loveland just beat the brakes off Palmer Ridge. They did it by running the ball. They threw a grand total of 0 passes in that 2020 championship game, and they blew out Palmer Ridge. That's another team that's going to join us tomorrow night down at Raising Cane's in Colorado Springs. But
that was a great point. It's a great point. That's when I asked the question to Coach Sanford about Valor and about defense, alluding to the defense side, because I didn't want to outright ask him, "Hey, how do you beat Cherry Creek?" Right on the air. It's not. This is my house, and I want to be very. I want to be very kind to the guests that come on in, but that's what point I was getting at, the defensive side. You're gonna have to stop them. You have to stop them, right? When you have someone rushing for 225 yards, period. Like how we do that, we have to adjust and make some different type of, close ends. You will build a gate, something on this big fella. To me, he's 227 pounds big, right? If he can go out there and make that, doesn't matter, because Jaden Fox is small and mighty, right? It's like if you're gonna rush the way you rush, you have to stop him to win.
Well, and you got to remember that in their league, I believe they're playing against teams like La Junta and Lamar. In Florence, which are also like that. When you get down to that southeast corner of the state, those guys are also very big and physical. Those La Junta state championship teams that Doug talked about, I mean, those were smash mouth football teams.
Savages.
They won I think they were. I can't remember if they won a state title game or it was the state title game that they lost to against Bayfield. Both very good teams, but John Nushi, the quarterback for La Junta at the time, I think he completed one pass for -1 yard. But that's a team that was still playing at that level, right? So you get into that. I think they call them the West League, but it's the old Tri-Peaks League. They're very smash mouth, kind of that old school kind of football that Coach Haxtun talked about a little bit. They run the ball a ton, and they're big and physical. So when you have a kid that can do that with Florence and can get 227 yards a game, it really makes you curious to see what they can do against a team like TCA, who, by the way, they've had some very disappointing playoff runs, and last year they got that monkey off their back by winning that state title. This is a team that now knows how to win and knows how to win at this time of the year.
Which is a scary jump for other teams in the field.
Right. Yeah. When they are consistently in the semifinals of their classification, that's definitely a scary jump. So that's the matchup that I'm looking forward to the most, is that TCA Florence matchup, and for that reason, I want to see what this kid can do.
Yeah, well, that's old school football, right? When you talk about smash, right? Smashing up on the Friday nights when small towns and there are 30 kids in the corner, like kicking up dust, and they have a Coca-Cola bottle or a Pepsi bottle, and whoever gets it runs until you get tackled, right? There's no passing in that, right? You're running. And these towns, you just, Hunter, these small town areas, that's where youth builds football players, right? Because the youth habits builds that. It's not like, hey, we're going to go RPO. We're not running four wide for this. So it's exciting to see that type of football in those type of neighborhoods, create sounds like a massive running back.
Yeah, and I don't want to get into what game it was last year, but I was at a game where a team got the ball back with 11:38 left in the game in the fourth quarter, and they were up by 9 points. They didn't throw a single pass. The other team never got the ball again, and the team on offense did not score a touchdown. They ran 11 minutes and 38 seconds off the clock. And I remember being in the press box and hearing one of the fans yell, "Play real football." And all I could think to myself is, this is real football. This is the kind of football you want to play. So
you want to win.
You want to win, guys. And we're going to shift. We're going to go back to some more big boys. I don't know if we have Coach Cohen on the line yet. He's watching film. He's going to jump in a few minutes, but we can go ahead and get started with just some bracket talk, guys. The 4A bracket is out. Montrose actually made a late day jump. So when I looked in the morning on Saturday, they were sitting at number 3 in the selection and seeding index. As everything got updated from Friday night games and Saturday afternoon games, they made the jump to number 2, which is crucial for the Red Hawks as they look to get back to the state championship game. Dakota Ridge firmed up that spot at number 1, spot that they pretty much held all year. Durango with 2 losses comes in at number 4, but the 2 losses they had were to Palmer Ridge and Montrose, the 2 teams directly above them. Of course, the Palmer Ridge Bears, I mentioned them earlier, they come in at number 3. Broomfield hangs on to get a bye week, despite what we thought was a shocking loss a few weeks ago to Riverdale Ridge. Doug, you didn't join us last week. You were on assignment, as our old friend Irv Brown would say, but we didn't get to give you your roses for calling Riverdale Ridge one of the teams to be watching a few weeks ago.
Well, I think Riverdale Ridge is a team that everybody should be watching, but I would also say, with regard to that Broomfield loss, there's context to that. They lost their starting quarterback at the beginning of the game in Matthew Merlett. And I think the fact that it was a close game still speaks to the fact that Broomfield's a pretty tough team, even with their backup quarterback at the helm now. They run the ball extremely well with that freshman running back. So I think, Broomfield has always been good. And the fact that Riverdale Ridge came in and beat them speaks to what they're able to do if given the chance.
Well, and Jermaine, you mentioned a little earlier that you had some Riverdale Ridge players in here getting some recovery, which you can always do right here at Upswing. But did you get a sense from them that you almost, that it might be that one of the worst places to be on Friday is opposite those guys?
Yeah, any Friday has shown for the last, the undefeated team, right? That's not been on the side you wanted to be on. And moving into the playoffs, one of the things you spoke about, and you're alluding to, Dean and Drake Presswood, having the conversations with those guys and what their team is focused on is the next play, not necessarily the rankings and how they came out to be. I mean, that's what we do, right? Mm-hmm. Not what they do. They're just ready to play the next opponent, the next play, and go win that play and execute. It's very mature young men in that regard. And I do believe that their ranking, I'm a little confused with how it works with it. I mean, I was going to ask you, wait till we get online, and how, you can be undefeated and rank so low. Does it have a lot to do with who they played and the strength of schedule or not? If so, that's data, right? It has to go. But yeah, you answer the question directly. Yeah, that's a team I wouldn't want to come across. Obviously, when you're a 10th seed, you're playing in an area that a lot of those teams coming off buys just don't want to see. And you could possibly have a rematch between those guys in Broomfield, I believe in the quarters, if I'm not speaking about third round, which I don't think Broomfield wants that early, and maybe they do because it's a win and move on, mentality. No matter what, no one wants an easy game in the playoffs. So, yeah, it should be interesting.
I think when you look at their seed as a number 10 seed, and then you look at Broomfield, which gets a bye, and I think they deserve a bye, but you beat that team.
Yeah.
So it's a little. It reminds me a little bit when Colorado beat Nebraska, and Nebraska somehow in the national championship game in Colorado.
Well, everything fell right for Nebraska.
Yeah, it all has to do with math. It all has to do with data, or it has to do with Tom Osborne. But Tom Osborne has nothing to do with this. But it's one of those interesting things. And I think if you're Riverdale Ridge, you're good already. I think this gives you even more fire. And that's a scary thing for anybody that might have to face them.
And I almost wanted to ask Coach Peeples this, just how much of a chip on your shoulder do you guys have because of what happened last year in that state championship game? Don't want to put him on the spot like that, but almost kind of the same thing now with Riverdale Ridge, right? You believe that you're at worst one of the top 8 teams in the state, but now you've got to play this first weekend. And again, as we stress so many times, you're 0-0, and Thomas Jefferson, your opponent on probably Friday, is 0-0. And so anything can happen on that. So interesting note, and you wanted to know kind of how the process works. So it's a combination of your RPI, which has been used for several years, and Max Preps data, which makes up the chassis selection seating index. A couple weeks ago, the board of directors voted to move ahead with using just Max Preps rankings as the seating component, as the selection and seating component. So if that was done this go around, Riverdale Ridge, and I don't want to get anyone fired up, but if
you're going to get
the system that's being that you're shifting to for next year, Riverdale Ridge is sitting at that number 8, and right behind them is Broomfield, right? And for anyone who's kind of throwing their arms up in the air of the process, this is something that CHSAA membership, the member schools, the office has nothing to do with this, but the member schools recognize as an issue. They've seen the what they feel is the increased accuracy of the Max Preps rankings, and that's what they're moving to for next year. So it makes for a really interesting situation. I took a look at just some of the bracket makeup compared to the Max Preps rankings, because that's the random things that I'll do on a Monday morning as we're prepping for a playoff show. We're still awaiting Ponderosa head coach Jaron Cohen. I know he's still working through some film stuff, and Danny Bailey's our executive producer, is gonna let us know when he's on. So guys, while we wait for Coach Cohen, we'll kind of ask the same things that we've been asking post other interviews. But what matchup in 4A are you really anxious to see? And I'm gonna tell you, it can't be Riverdale Ridge, because we've talked about it.
Well, it can be them. I do want to see them.
It can be that,
but I'll keep the show alive. How about that? So I'm looking forward to, truly, and this might blow your mind, Vista Ridge and Montbello. And this is the reason why, because I think Vista Ridge has that same type of talent can go in, and nothing against Montbello. I'm not saying they're going to lose the game, but I'm looking for that matchup to possibly look at the next round would be Broomfield versus Vista Ridge, which is the Colorado Springs, native here. And those teams have been getting, put to the side a little bit in the rankings all year. We all know 4A has been all up and down, all in every which way. So I'm very interested to see that game, because I do believe when you look at that matchup between Vista Ridge and Montbello, if they win that game, that puts them in position. Now, if Montbello wins that game, that's a great win for that area, and that's a great win for that program. So I'm very interested. First round, that was what stuck out to me.
I look at Northfield Longmont. I mean, I think that's a matchup.
See, now he's stealing my answers. See what you've done.
I think that Northfield team is interesting. I'm going to say that they get out of this first round, and that's kind of new territory for them. But I do think, you look at what they've done over the course of this season. They beat Mesa Ridge, which is a team that we've thought highly of over the course of the season at times. And they lost to Heritage in overtime, and Heritage is one of your top 4 seeds. So, I think that Northfield has athletes. I think they're a program that hasn't quite experienced a lot of winning in football just yet, but they're that kind of team that, let's say they get a first round win. Well, let's see what they can do in the second round win. And they just keep building confidence. They have some signature wins this season. So I think they're a team that thinks that they can do some things in the playoffs. And I'm pretty anxious to see if they're right.
Yeah, so obviously that was one I was looking forward to as well before I'm going to call an audible. So I'm actually going to go down, but it's actually a good favor you've done, because I want to look at Grand Junction and Highlands Ranch for one big reason. The I-25 League, and a lot of people, if you guys go down the Twitter rabbit hole as much as I do, there's a lot of complaining about the I-25 League, because they had, I believe, 4 teams in the top 24. But the deal is it's a designed rebuilding league. It's for programs that have been traditionally struggling in recent years. So you put them all together, and the only team that gets to qualify for the playoffs is the league champion. And the point is to get your games to more of a competitive level so that interest in your program goes up. Last year, Grand Junction was the league champion. They're the league champion again this year after a win over Sand Creek last weekend, but they won a playoff game. And what's really intriguing to me about that entire situation is typically it's your reward for winning this league is getting to the playoffs. And then they've kind of been, they haven't performed well in the playoffs. And so when you get to that point and then you see Grand Junction win a playoff game last year, you want to see, was that a one-time thing because they had the right group of athletes, or do you now have such interest in the program that you're getting the athletes that you should have out every year? And is this football program going to grow and continue to develop? They can't be, I'm not sure if there's going to be a version of the I-25 league next year, a rebuilding league, but if there is, Grand Junction can't be in it because they've won it. So what happens with this program now? And I think this year is another springboard moment for that. If they can go in and beat Highlands Ranch and get their second playoff win in 2 years, who knows what that does for that program? And that's allowing the league as it was designed to work.
Hey, that's a great audible. I mean, we call that a golden audible in the football world. It's a golden audible. Because what you did, you ran down and we seen the heart side of you, Dan, which I appreciate. It was more about
kids here, aren't we?
It's for the kids. It's for the kids. But honestly, in all seriousness, I agree. I mean, there are programs in that league that need it just as much as any other program. I mean, Highlands Ranch, I trained Highlands Ranch during the COVID season. That was when they had Coach Rubley there. They were doing a great job. Now Coach Rubley of Regis, and his son was Jake Rubley. You remember the quarterback there. So had those kids, great kids. I mean, they have won this in the NFL now. Drake Nagat, I believe he was a lineman. I think he plays with Tampa now, right? They had a great team program. So, but look what they're going up against in the Highlands Ranch area. You say Highlands Ranch, just that area. You think about the teams are out there producing.
Mount Vista, Thunder Ridge.
Keep going, right? Or I mean, even the Rock Canyons,
right? And
the kids are making their choices. You know, right across the street is Valor, and it sits across the street from Highlands Ranch High School. Yeah, that's interesting to see. But yeah, I like that matchup. I don't want either to lose. How about that? Either one of those teams.
Yeah, you want the best game possible, and really, Grand Junction quarterback Andrew Neese has thrown for just under 1,300 yards, but he's a sophomore, right? So you've got young excitement in that program. It's one of those things where high school athletics at its core, like that's kind of the situation that it's designed for. I don't know. I don't think Grand Junction's going to make necessarily an underdog run to the semifinals, but I think winning a game for them would be massive. I mean, obviously winning the game for Highlands Ranch would be massive as they continue to grow and build around that area. But I think that game itself has implications that go beyond just, this year and this postseason. And I like that look on your face when I talk about these things, and I can tell that you're learning something.
I 100%. I love it because every school, every opportunity you get to speak on them, it takes us back. I mean, I don't want to show my age, pretty much on this show, but I think about Grand Junction. One of the best young men I think to come out of Grand Junction years back was a CU guy, Marcus Harris, right? People don't know this. Yeah, Marcus Harris was a wideout, right? He was a wideout in Grand Junction. He became a defensive end. They were fighting over him at CU or what position he would play. And I think about that history with those programs.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I mentioned an underdog run to the semifinals, but guys, in this 4A field, there's 24 teams. Who do you like as maybe a potential sleeper to break through that bracket?
Well, I mentioned Northfield, but I also look at this bracket and I see Broomfield sitting at number 6. I mean, it's a little bit in the same vein as I mentioned Valor earlier. Is Broomfield really an underdog? No, but based on their seed, they're not supposed to advance to the semifinals at all. So, you throw in the storyline of losing their starting quarterback, and maybe they are a bit of an underdog of sorts, but I think that's a team, when you look at their bracket, they could have some unique matchups there, but could they get out of that quadrant? I think they could. So I definitely think of Broomfield as a team that, we talked about as a 1 or a 2 or, maybe a 3 for most of the season. They're a 6 seed. I'll sign up for that. I want to see how far the Eagles can go.
Yeah, and I'm going to say what I what I talked about the second week. I love Montrose. I think Montrose has a great opportunity, great run. Once again, getting back to that theme of the day, that small school, small area, hometown grown, football type of players. I had a buddy, Eric Sanchez, basketball coach down there for years. And if you know anything about Montrose, that lady team there, I'm just going to put it there. They had a lot of controversy about their mascot, so I'm not going to say it here today as well. But they had a great year. They put together some great narratives for that team. I think they can make a huge run. Not calling a ringer, but I like Ponderosa, and I wish coach was on here to hear it.
He's coming at some point.
Right. He can hear
that's
it.
What he told me, at least.
He can play it back. I like Ponderosa. I think you start talking about that Parker area again, right? Is you think about that Parker Road between Regis, Legend. You have Lutheran sitting outside. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities for those kids. They play some tough football, and the wrong matchup for their opponent can be a win for them. So I like Ponderosa as well.
It's funny you mentioned Montrose. One way to go out on a limb and take a 2 seed as your underdog.
Yeah, well, it's underdog because think about it. They are an underdog when it comes to what? Winning championships.
Sure.
Right.
They were there. They were there last year.
Well, you can be there last year. I mean, so was Columbine. They were state champions 2 years ago, and we were talking about them just getting in the playoffs this year.
That's true.
Yeah. So it's
leaning on the data.
Oh, absolutely. I have to. I mean, sometimes the who and the what, but today it is still an underdog because obviously there's people ranked above them, 1 or 2 below them. Everyone knows can beat them. Right. So it is underdog because it's underdog because you're not looking at an opportunity just for them to dominate. It's not, I'm not picking Creek as an underdog, right? You're not, Valor is a great one to pick, but I'm telling you on this level, I would go Montrose for sure.
Well, you did mention a team in Ponderosa, and now we're gonna actually have the Ponderosa head coach defend why they could make an underdog run. So we're gonna bring into the program Ponderosa head coach Jaron Cohen. Coach, I'm so incredibly happy you could pencil me into your schedule.
I had to double check, and you were right. You gave me a window, and then I said no, but we just finished film, so always make time for Dan and the guys at Upswing there.
I wasn't going to call you out, but I texted Coach Cohen last night and said, hey, we want to have you on the show to talk 4A bracket. He said, okay, when? I gave him a window. And he's like, great, I can do anything in there. So then I text him a time. He texts me back this morning and says that doesn't work. And it was well within the window. And
hey, a guy's got to have priorities, and talking to us shouldn't be one of them.
I'm not
preparing for the state football playoffs. That's a priority, a real priority.
It's time. It's time to go.
You've got a big game coming up this weekend. Have you guys set a time yet? It appears to be Friday at 6 p.m. You'll host Jeremy Mercer and the Silver Creek Raptors. Coach, are we just going to get tunnel screened to death?
We're going to get QB run to death, I think. Jeremy's a really good friend of mine, and he does a great job. That's the first playoffs they've made in 9 years in 4A, so we're definitely going to get their best shot. He does a great job with the offense, and the defense flies around, so they're definitely a good football team, and, hopefully we can put together a good effort and come out with a win.
What were your impressions just when you saw the layout of the bracket and the way that the teams were matched up? Was there anything that really jumped out to you as intriguing, interesting, egregious?
No, I mean, when you get down, since they expanded to 24, there's always going to be the fight over, who's 24 and who's 25, right? And I've been doing this a while out in this state, and it used to be who's 16, who's 17. I think in 4A, we played Dakota Ridge and Palmer Ridge. I think those two teams and Montrose are kind of going into the playoffs as kind of the tier one, so to speak, of the most complete teams to make a run. So I think, Dakota Ridge getting away from those two helps them a little bit, but Durango's really good. We just played a tough one with Heritage last week. They're really good. He's got some real talented guys there at Heritage. So there's quite a few teams that can get hot and make a run this year in 4A, I believe.
Coach, you faced a lot of the teams that are highly thought of in this bracket: Palmer Ridge, Heritage, Dakota Ridge. You lost all those games, but some were closer than others. What did you learn about your team and about the level that you need to be at in order to advance through this bracket with teams like that involved?
Yeah, we came into this year pretty young. We only have 14 seniors. we've dealt with a lot of injuries. We had a third-string quarterback from week 3 on. Finally got our starter back last week in a reduced role from a collarbone. It's been a challenging season for us. A lot of teams have a lot of seniors and a lot of depth. Like Dakota Ridge was tremendous last year and brought back a ton of their team. Palmer Ridge, year in, year out, they come out of the locker room. You're like, I thought you graduated a bunch of linemen, and they have 5 trees out there. Heritage brought back their quarterback, tight end, running back, just a really deep team. But we fought, I don't think we were going to win any of those 3 games with how we played and how they played, but our players fought really, really hard. And, there were definitely some situations that if we capitalize on some 1st and goal situations or make a stop on 3rd and goal, those games are a little closer. I don't think with the way we played versus the way they played, we win any of those 3 games, to be perfectly honest. And those are 3 of the top 5 teams in 4A this year. And definitely proud of how we've improved, and we're starting to get some guys back from injury and starting to be a little more disciplined as we get more game experience. So hopefully it can translate into some wins starting Friday.
You talk about the young team that you have. How crucial is this playoff experience, regardless of what happens, if you guys advance through to face Durango, or if you fall in the first round? How crucial can this playoff experience be as you kind of build that excitement for, I think you said you had a small junior class, but then a good looking sophomore and freshman class?
Yeah, we have a small junior class, but a really good junior class. Some linemen, some skill guys, receivers. Sophomore class is loaded. Last year they were really, really good, and a lot of them are playing right now. And then hopefully just how we approach the playoffs, with daylight fading and kids a little weary, just kind of emphasizing, hey, it's going to be a little more film, shorter practice. Let's have a great tempo. Let's make sure we're doing film on our own. We had a great lift this morning at 6:45 a.m. Just kind of how we approach it. And I know we try to have a standard, weekly on how we prepare, but it does ratchet up a little in the playoffs as, seniors are like, they want to keep playing. And I try to tell my underclassmen, you think you have next year, but you never know, right? Like, stuff happens. Dad gets a new job, or, God forbid you get in a bad accident or something of that nature. And hopefully that doesn't happen and we don't take anything for granted and just focus even more this week.
Hey, Coach, with that team, right up the street on Parker Road, it has a lot of excitement in that 5A ranks. When you start talking about the young guys you have going into the playoffs, how do you prepare your team and your program each week with just that brand that, I don't like using the word outshine, but people are still interested in Ponderosa football. I think Ponderosa football has some great, history. What do you guys do away from the field to make sure you stay, as the kids say, you stay lit in the community? What are you guys doing out there?
Yeah, I'm not a big flash guy. I'm more like, here's what we do, here's what we stand for. We do a lot of youth camps and clinics. And I think it's just a lot of word of mouth that all our players get positive experiences, all our players get developed. Any of our players who want to continue playing in college, we relentlessly advocate for, whether it's Division I type kid or an NAIA kid. So I think our players understand they end up having a really positive experience here. We win a lot of games. I mean, it's my 12th year. We've winning record the last 11, playoffs every year. We're always in the mix. So there's some consistency there. And really we're kind of a homegrown group, right? Like we're not trying to pull kids from all over. And I think there's still a segment of the population that's into that.
Coach, I'm a firm believer that rivalry, especially within communities, kind of helps instill a lot of pride in high school kids as they're playing football. You guys haven't had legend on the schedule this cycle. What's being done? Is there anything being done to kind of get back to that so that there can be that that Parker rivalry being built up again?
Yeah, we're trying to get it back. They don't seem interested right now. It's unfortunate from my perspective. It kind of got a little ugly after 23, to be honest. And, unfortunately the adults are kind of ruining that for teenagers who want to play. Our players know their players. And I I think all the players do want to play. It does not seem like it will be brought back this cycle, so maybe we'll try again in the 28-29 cycle, because it's a really big rivalry and stands are packed, and win or lose, it's a really, really fun game for our communities and their community. And I don't know. We'll see what happens there.
I thought it was a great experience.
Yeah, you were there 22 when we beat them in the Folds of Honor game, and it was packed house, and everyone left it on the field, and kids are taking pictures after with opposing teams, and it's unfortunate, but we're just going to play who we can get on our schedule.
Well, I am a Lutheran guy. Don't hold it against me, Coach. I'm a coach there as well. What about that other team? What about Lutheran?
We'll get them next year.
There we go. Perfect. I would love to see that. I think those are two great programs, and obviously Lutheran is looking to be possibly 4A. I know we're 4A in track. It would be a great opportunity to show the Parker pride. So thank you for all you do in Parker. I've been a fan for a long time. You and I cross paths a lot. I love the way you do things out there. So congratulations on a great season.
I appreciate that. Yeah, Steve's a good friend of mine, Robbins, and his son plays with my son. And we said, if you don't end up in league, let's play next year, next cycle. And once again, there's a lot of crossover with kids who know each other and grew up playing Hawks together and things like that. So probably I would guess they're going to be in our league. I think they're definitely going to be 4A football. And if somehow they're not in our league, we are going to play Lutheran next cycle for sure. I think that'll be a lot of fun for the community.
Well, Coach, I know you've got to get to practice. I know this because you told me how much time you had available. So I'd ask you who you think is going to win the 4A title, but you're just going to answer Ponderosa. So I don't think we need to waste your time. But I
can give you a little breakdown on some teams if you want.
No, well, as much as I would love to, I know you have to go. But we can't thank you enough. We're looking forward to a time where we can get you back on the program, because I think you would do you would add a lot of entertainment value, if nothing else, to this group.
Thanks, Ted. I appreciate you guys having me. And 4A bracket's going to be good. I mean, I'll give you just a quick synopsis. Dakota Ridge to me, top down is pretty darn good, and they have some star power. Palmer Ridge top down is really, really good. And they can throw the ball this year, and they just play amazing defense. And Montrose plays great defense and has that system that is a real pain. And then Durango, Heritage, Monarch, can't count out Broomfield. Riverdale, I saw a film on them, looks really good. I might have missed someone, but don't take it personal. But there's a ton of teams. It should be a really, really fun bracket this year.
All right, Coach. Have a good practice, and when you see Mercer, tell him I said good luck this weekend.
I will do that. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Coach.
You fellas. Bye-bye.
That was Ponderosa head coach Jaron Cohen. Always good dude, like Jermaine says. He does everything the right way. Does a great job of building up that Parker community. So, guys, we got 2 more classes we got to touch on. We're going to get to those in just a few minutes on the other side of this break.
Raising Cane's invites you to grab life by the chicken fingers. So get out there. Be you. Do you. Embrace whatever makes you, you. All while enjoying Raising Cane's hand-battered cooked-to-order chicken fingers, crispy crinkle-cut fries, buttery Texas toast, and that secret recipe cane sauce that makes everything that much better. So go on. Savor the day.
Raising Cane's chicken fingers. One love.
This is Tim Anderson of Gordon Insurance, and we are proud to support all of our area athletes. With offices in Lyman, Callahan, Flagler, Sterling, and Kit Carson, we offer all types of insurance, including home, auto, commercial, farm, crop, life, bonds, and workman's compensation. We are independent and thus can offer you multiple choices of companies, not just one. Call or visit the office near you, and one of our agents can take care of you. See all of our contact information by going to www.gordonins.com or call me at 719-740-1361.
Welcome back into the Colorado Prep Show presented by Upswing. I'm the editor-in-chief of Colorado Preps, Dan Mohrmann. Along with me is the editor-in-chief of Mile High Sports Magazine, Doug Ottewill, and our buddy Jermaine Stafford, the proprietor. I still don't know the exact title to use for you.
That's always good if you don't know.
The proprietor of Upswing right here on University Boulevard. You bring your kids in, get them trained, get them active, and let them compete. That's pretty much the deal here. So we've touched on all but 2 classifications of high school football playoff brackets, guys. We're going to move into the 1A ranks where Buena Vista comes in as the #1 overall seed after a perfect regular season. You know what makes up for that perfect? You know what is a part of that perfect regular season, Dougie? A win over Lyman.
Absolutely.
Which,
a great win.
A grand total of 1 team has been able to do this year, and it was Buena Vista. Gets them the #1 seed. Badgers check in at #2 as they look to get back into the state championship game after falling to, I believe it was Ray Forge last year. Was it Forge or Ray?
I believe it was Forge in the class. Yeah,
it was Forge Christian. En route to that fantastic showing by Ray in the 1A state title game last year at Dutch Clark Stadium in Pueblo. Burlington and Centauri rounding out at 3 or 4. In order to win the state championship, there's a good chance that Buena Vista has to beat both Centauri and Lyman again, and that would be the second time that they'd beaten them for both of those teams. They have a regular season win over Centauri earlier in the year that kind of, raised our eyebrows a little bit to see that Buena Vista was kind of for real. And then, of course, beating Lyman was kind of the tell-all that this may be the team to beat. But, guys, what's the toughest challenge in a scenario like that, Jermaine? I mean, not 1 but 2 teams that were non-league games that you went through in the regular season that you beat. You may have to face that again if you want to hoist that state championship trophy.
Well, that's what you want to do. You want to beat the best team, right? And the best team is the team in front of you that you're matched up against. And I think I won't sit here as a coach or athlete and saying we want to see 1 and 2, right? It's nothing against the other ones in the bracket, other teams in the bracket, but to see this again, 1 and 2, get back at it. That's what I'm very excited for. Like I want to attend this game. Like I want to make it clear my schedule. Like coach from Ponderosa there, I want to clear my schedule and make sure I can be here to see this. Also, I want to see the fan club behind Doug here because I know he is a Lyman guy.
They love the Ottewills and Lyman.
Right,
They travel.
So I want to see what that's like. But I'm looking forward to this, and I'm sure Burlington has something to say about 1 and 2 matching up again, and some other teams there. But yeah, I think the narrative should be with any team going into the playoffs. It's always let's beat the play in front of us. Literally that way. Beat the play in front of us. Not beat the team, not win the game, but beat the play in front of you. If you execute, you can move on. And if you're not the better team that day, you're just not the better team that day.
Well, I guarantee you that's how Buena Vista's preparing and Lyman's preparing. I don't know that they necessarily care that they're undefeated or they only had 1 loss or they should win based on their seed. Those 2 programs specifically, they prepare for the play ahead of them. And I think speaking from what I know about Mike O'Dwyer, you're scared to not be prepared for the play in front of you if you're a Lyman Badger. So I think that culture, that's what advances you to the state finals year in, year out. It is that, hey, we're not overlooking anybody. Hey, we are going to dominate every play from scrimmage. And I think that's how you wind up where you wind up when you're a school like that. I think I'm with Jermaine here. You don't necessarily want to root against anyone in the bracket, but I would love to see a rematch of this game, especially on a neutral field.
Yeah, and when you have 2 coaches like that, right? We talked to Matt Flavin earlier in the year. It was after that game where they beat Lyman. And you talk to Mike O'Dwyer probably a little more often than I do, but I've certainly had my interactions with him. These are 2 very seasoned head coaches that are both state championship winning coaches that are able to learn from what's happened through the course of the year, whether or not they were on the winning or losing side of that outcome. So
absolutely.
What do you think O'Dwyer can take from that line or from the loss to Buena Vista as much as, Coach Flavin can take from the win? Because he knows he won't see the exact same thing again.
Well, I think if you remember correctly, that play came down to one of the last plays of the game, a pass in the end zone. So I think you're not going to see those 2 teams change their identities. But what I do think is there'll be more attention to detail. I think the tackling and containing Buena Vista's running game was a big, or will be a big focus. I think when it comes to linemen, I think it's always going to be do what you do well, which is win the battle in the trenches. And against the team like the Demons, that's not easy. They're big too. So I think you'll see some wrinkles, and those are the kind of wrinkles that no one's going to know about until we actually see them. But I know just based on the outcome of the first one, those will be the focuses. Winning the trenches is everything, and I think both teams will tell you that.
I always ask you about beating the same team twice in a year, but I want to take a little bit of a different spin on that. If you're the winning coach and you come off a win over a team like Lyman, what's the best thing you can do to learn from that so that you are just as, if not more, prepared for round two?
As a coach, you approach it as if you lost, right? You truly do when it comes to strategy with these two type of teams. You're going to play them again, right? You possibly could see them again. So let's go in. How can we get better? How can we get better? When you go into a film room, I keep going back to Coach Ponderosa being in that film room, but it sits. And when you're in that film room, you're looking at what did we win? What did we learn from, right? Because even when you win a game, there's some things there they need to learn from, right? There's opportunities and plays that they missed. The coach made a great point that we put him in that position to talk about the fumble last year, that fumble in the state championship that should have happened. And his response was beautiful. It was almost like he knew your question was coming eventually.
He always knows that question is coming.
And he did right? He said there's 15, 16 plays on offense, defense, and special teams they could have won that game in. He's watched that film, right? Mm-hmm. He's watched the film. Yes, he was a losing coach, but if you think about a winning or losing coach is going to go back and say, what are the things that we did not win? And we didn't lose these things. What are these things that my team can learn from? So when they get in that same situation, I had great coaches in my time, and I'm telling you, Mark D'Antonio at Michigan State is a defensive back coach. As DBs, we will lose 70% of the time. You will lose 70% of the time in college. You just are. There's catches, there's passes going to be caught. 30% of the time when you actually win, what were you learning from when you actually won that 30%? Not looking at the 70%. It's like you amnesia, right? That play is over, you beat, forget about it. I'm lining back up. The 30% of those plays that you actually won, what are you learning from? Because that's what's going to make you a better player. Same approach with these teams. What did they win from, and can they improve to win for next time? If it didn't win a certain set or a certain package that they were in, what can they look for to get a victory?
The 1A bracket traditionally is one of my favorites to watch throughout the course of the year because I feel like you're getting more competitive games across the entire bracket. So that being said, is there a game that jumps out to you guys? Jermaine, do you want me to go first? Do you want to go first so Doug can't steal your answer?
Well, he can't steal this one because this one's going to be one that's going to blow everyone. I don't really think any other game in 1 and 2 makes a difference in 1A this year. Because I believe there will be 1-2 back at it again, standing tall. Nothing against those other teams.
You think it's all chalk?
I don't want to call out chalk because as soon as they lose, my phone's going to light up. And I don't know how they number. I'm going to get rocks here at the facility. I'm not displacing any other team. Burlington, Centauri, none of the other programs in 1A. And I do know that 1A world. Once again, I've alluded to that. But I just want to see that championship. I truly want to see 1 versus 2, and that's the one I'm looking forward to.
Dougie?
Well, I'm going to look at Ray, specifically Ray versus Rye, the tomato game. The spelling's different, but Ray's that team to me that's a championship pedigree team. They're there year in, year out. If it's not Lyman, it's Ray. If it's not Ray, it's Lyman, kind of thing. And they are down a little bit from what they've had the past, say, 2 or 3 seasons, but that's still a team that knows how to win. That's a coach that knows how to win.
Casey Midcap and Sam Meisner were so good for that team last year.
So to say, hey, they're not quite what they were, or Lyman beat them this season, or whatever you want to say about them, that's fine. But they're a team that knows how to get there. And I think that's one that you want to keep your eye on. And whether you're, Lyman or Buena Vista, like that's a team that you better take seriously if you see them in the playoffs.
Well, and they also have that great equalizer in the single wing offense.
Absolutely.
And it causes a headache for anyone who's not prepared for it. You've so very much have to know your assignments defensively when you're playing against that system. It won Manitou Springs 2 state championships way back in the day. So I'm actually going to go ahead and look. And this one I got from Kevin Schaefer on the drive up. He and I were chatting just about stuff ahead of the week. And he said that CSCS Monte Vista game is going to be a good one to watch. And Monte Vista coach Manny Wassinger he's a guy who's been at it for a very long time. And if they can somehow win a game on the road, they can, I believe the 1A travel rules are consistent with what they've been in previous years. So they would host Lyman as the 10 seed, and you get a coaching,
Strange.
you get a coaching duel like that. It's to balance out travel. It makes sense if you understand the full scope behind it. But Manny Wassinger against Mike O'Dwyer would be a really fun coaching duel to see, especially if it's in the second round of the playoffs. Last up, guys, we head to the six man bracket. We cannot have a Cheyenne Mountain versus Stratton state title game. It cannot happen. It can't be the two teams that we've regarded for a lot of this year, but especially for the last couple of years as the top two teams in six man, because they are on the same side of the bracket. So that would be a semifinal game. Idalia is the number one team in the six man bracket. I would say the odds-on favorite at this point, just in terms of the way that they played and the fact that UC Stratton has lost twice. They lost to I know they lost to Caliche, and did they lose to Cheyenne Wells? Or this is what happens when you pull the brackets down, guys, and you're not looking at them directly. But anyway, the new blood that you could see if Idalia makes it to the six-man title game, is that at that level, is that something that's very much a welcome sight? Or what's our approach just with how this six-man bracket can shake up?
Well, I like that there's parity there.
Right.
I mean, I like the fact that there's a few teams in there that could win, because I think in six-man football, as good and as kind of a fun, wild ride as it can be, it seems like every year there's basically two teams that could win. Mm-hmm. I think this year you look at the bracket and there's several teams that could win. Mm-hmm. So I do like that. We can kind of go down the bracket and whatever. And I would say it still seems like the 1, 2, or 3 should win. But this is a little bit of a shakeup for that level.
Yeah, and it was Stratton's second loss was to Idalia, so to the number one team, which clearly makes them the favorite. Cheyenne Wells' only loss this year was to Stratton. So, Jermaine, have you seen a six-man football game?
I have not live. I've coached 7, but not 6. Right? And I didn't say that.
Very different animal. I mean, it's
definitely
it's this very similar in the sense that it's backyard. It looks like backyard football.
Sure.
But it's there's so much space for 6 players to be on the field. And the fact that a 2A kid is leading the state in all classifications in rushing actually tells you just how well he's playing, because those 6-man kids, once they get out there, I mean, we saw Alex Cruz, kid from Stratton a couple of years ago, you'd think that kid would have D1 offers pouring in just with the way he gets the ball and he is able to move in space. And
yeah, it's unfortunate because talent is talent, right?
So talent
is
talent.
I see a guy like that and automatically think on the next level, slot wide receiver, even if he doesn't possibly fit the size requirement from most Division I programs and talk about running back, but as a slot, right? And or opportunity like old Austin Eckler at Eaton, right? I mean,
great comparison,
right? You start thinking about those type of players. I mean, it's unfortunate, but I can say this is not a opportunity for plug, but it is an opportunity. I mean, here at Upswing, that's what we tend to do for young men, is finding out the who within them, right, and assisting them on that path. Just had this conversation with a dad this morning in regards to how recruiting for Division I football has totally changed, and obviously we know the portal and NIL. Well, last year, if you look at CU, for instance, they were recruiting 2 high school kids, five-star kids, just 2. Right? Everything else was a different make of kids. So how are you going to navigate that? What's the conversation you are having with your, son or daughter, right, when it comes to playing football? So I believe there's opportunities for the young man. It could be opportunities for him. It just have to be some strategy behind it and highlighting his talent over he plays 6-man football versus like this is what he can do playing the sport of football. and highlighting him. So yeah, I would this year. Once again, I'm excited to get out and mingle with you guys more with some of these 6A and 6-man and 8-man and 1A football. I'm happy to go and check some out.
The good news is it's warmer in Pueblo in late November than it is up here.
Mm.
So if you're going to go down and watch that state championship game, you don't have to put on the heavy coats.
Yes,
it's
I never do anyway. I'm Haitian American, so I put on super heavy coats when it's outside. But I get your point.
What could be exciting for Idalia is if they're able to play their way to a state title. I mean, they dominated all of 6-man football in those 2000 stretch. As I looked at that last night, Dougie, I started to realize we may have made a mistake. We might have someone we left out in the newest pages of Mile High Sports magazine.
Always do.
And for those wondering what we're talking about, I'd say wait another week until we get magazines in hand, but it's going to be a fun feature. So is there, whether it's an upset, whether it's a first round matchup, what do we like seeing in the 6-man field?
I'm looking at Caliche. I mean, that's a
they
team
have a win over Stratton.
They're the 7 seed. They beat Stratton. They lost to Prairie, which is kind of an odd loss to have in there. But you never know. With 6-man, it could be you have one kid that has a cold one week. The losses don't necessarily always tell the story on paper. You got to know the why. And to be fair, I don't exactly know the why or how they lost to Prairie. But the fact that they went in and beat Stratton tells me they're capable of beating anybody. So I think that's a team you really got to watch. It's a 7-10 in the first round. Caliche faces off against Walsh, but if they win, which I expect they will, anything could happen from there. I mean, that's a very interesting 7 seed to me.
Eads was putting up points like no one would believe early in the season, and I think I definitely had them as one of the top teams in 6-man. They took a couple of losses late. They're the 6th seed, but I want to see how that shakes out with them and Brant and Kim and what happens there, because the winner could potentially get Cheyenne Wells. And I believe Cheyenne Wells was one of those teams that handed Eads a loss. So I think that just about does it for the football talk, guys. Outside of one thing, I asked you both on the agenda. I want a bold prediction for week 1 of high school football playoffs.
A bold prediction.
Yeah. So I was leaning towards this. I'll give you an example. I'm not going with this, but I was thinking on the drive up, a defending state champion is going to lose. Then I realized 2 of them have buys, and the matchups are really good for the others. So I held off on that one. But that's kind of what I want you guys thinking about.
Well, I'll let you go first here, Doug. See, I want to steal your answer to this one. See how we can speak together.
I don't know if I would say it's as bold as a state champion is going to lose, but I look at Regis to knock off Erie. That's 21 beating a 12 in the first round. I think it could happen. I think I've maybe gotten a little bit of an affinity to Regis based on the things I've learned from Jermaine all season. This is a young team that's on the build. And I think that, they're a team with maybe something to prove. And if nothing else, it's a springboard for next year. So my bold prediction is Regis takes down Erie in round 1.
I will go with Eagle Crest. I'm going with Eagle Crest. I think Eagle Crest, regardless of the seed and where we sit with the seed, I believe that Eagle Crest team coming back what they came from last year and the build they started, I would say Eagle Crest. I'm looking for them to have a nice run, not an underdog run, all right, necessarily, but definitely to go in and win a couple games. And a couple games you can pull up there. That's big. And you're talking about the second game if they go in and pull an upset there. So I'm looking for Eagle Crest to turn the narrative there.
I don't think they're going to necessarily win the game, but I think Delta gives Brush a major scare this week. Delta, they're a seasoned team, state champions a couple years ago. They're on the road. I just think that one of those 4 2A undefeated teams is at least going to get woken up this weekend.
It's not Halloween.
So your bold prediction is someone's going to get scared.
Yeah, someone's going to get scared. It's not Halloween.
It's going to be. You're giving Jermaine crap for picking Montrose as his underdog.
Absolutely.
But here's the thing: you look at those top 4 teams in 2A, and in theory, they should be cakewalk first round games. And I'm just, I don't know why Delta and Brush really jumps out at me, but I just think that I think it's got more to do with Delta than anything else. There are some players there that were at least in the program when they won state a couple years ago. I think that at a bare minimum, they put probably the scare of the weekend in the brush.
Probably.
You keep
Look at this
declining.
guy.
Just
I'm
when
gonna
the
take him to Vegas. I'm gonna
I'm gonna
probably
probably bet on
hits
black.
on 16.
I'm gonna probably bet on black.
absolutely.
Anyway, so that's it for the football talk. Before we get out of here, we know we were football heavy today, but we do have some standouts and letter winners from over the weekend, guys. I got to start with Oliver Horton from Coronado Cross Country. He set the course record at the state meet, the first Colorado runner to break 15 minutes and win a state championship. I mean, we're talking about Parker Wolf and Cole Sprouts, kids who are basically in Olympic trials and Olympic level runners. So congratulations to him.
That's big,
that's,
by the way.
Yeah,
That's big.
You even mentioned that before the show. That's how you know that we're getting attention.
It's truly big. I coached Cole Sprout at Valor at the time, and I remember he broke the national record.
Yeah.
And we were at Oregon Relays. This is before they tore the stadium down. We kept asking, why did he keep looking over his shoulder? He said, I thought someone was behind me. It was his shadow.
That's
He was running from his shadow. I got that same feeling with this young man. You know, Usain Bolt, they say when he slowed down, he was pumping his chest and he could have ran faster. Did you notice he was actually clicking his watch like 5 strides out? If he would have sprinted, he would have had any more. But no point.
Well, he doesn't wear a watch.
But he always shows off.
I know.
Exactly.
I know. But it was showing off. It was fun.
It's awesome.
Bergen Waitman from Valor Christian Girls Volleyball. She had 23 kills as the Eagles completed a reverse sweep of Resurrection Christian in the championship of the Cheyenne Mountain Volleyball Tournament. I was down at the World Arena for that one. Great atmosphere, great performance by Valor to close out a win. And then Noah Howard, a guy I mentioned earlier in the program, his 2,050 rushing yards, led all players in the regular season. And the Huskies take on TCA for the final spot of in the first round of the 2A playoffs. We're going to talk with TCA a little bit tomorrow. Coach Justin Rich is going to bring some of his guys down to Raising Cane's at 7585 North Academy Boulevard in Colorado Springs. That's where we're going to be tomorrow to talk more football on the Raising Cane's Road to State show. We've got the new issue of Mile High Sports Magazine that'll be out in the next week or so, 8 days or so. Dougie, that's your deal. So, and of course, we're here at Upswing. Come get your kids trained, come get them recovered, and let's make them all better competitors.
Absolutely. We are very excited for this week at Upswing. As you can see, they're starting to fill in here. We have a great opportunity to.
Why are these 3 idiots talking in the middle of our turf?
Exactly. We have an audience here. Like, it is show. And believe it or not, one of my biggest competitors and the people I negotiate and debate sports with all the time, he just walked in. So he's a young man sitting there. I debate sports with him all the time. He's a Yankees fan who's cheering for Toronto. We'll talk about that at a whole different day. But yes, truly, this place is special when it comes to young people. It's an opportunity for us to get to pour in them. Obviously, they're here for a reason. They understand we're here for a reason as well. It's great people connecting great people to meet dreams.
Well, and thanks for having us in your
Thank
house.
you.
This is not the last show we will do from
Definitely.
Upswing, but we are done for today. So for Doug Ottewill, for Jermaine Stafford, for Danny Bailey, Nate Lundy, the rest of the Mile High Sports Colorado Prep staff, I'm Dan Mohrmann, the editor-in-chief of Colorado Preps, and we'll see you guys on the gridiron. Playoff football starts this week.